Pink Floyd were an English rock band formed in London in 1965. Gaining a following as a psychedelic pop group, they were distinguished for their extended compositions, sonic experimentation, philosophical lyrics and elaborate live shows, and became a leading band of the progressive rock genre. They are one of the most commercially successful and influential bands in popular music history. They were founded by students Syd Barrett, guitar, lead vocals, Nick Mason, drums, Roger Waters, bass guitar, vocals, and Richard Wright, keyboards, vocals. Under Barrett's leadership, they released 2 charting singles and a successful debut album, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, 1967. Guitarist and vocalist David Gilmour joined in December 1967. Barrett left in April 1968 due to deteriorating mental health. Waters became the primary lyricist and thematic leader, devising the concepts behind the albums The Dark Side of the Moon, 1973, Wish You Were Here, 1975, Animals, 1977, The Wall, 1979, and The Final Cut, 1983. The band also composed several film scores. Following personal tensions, Wright left Pink Floyd in 1979, followed by Waters in 1985. Gilmour and Mason continued as Pink Floyd, rejoined later by Wright. The three produced 2 more albums, A Momentary Lapse of Reason, 1987, and The Division Bell, 1994, and toured both albums before entering a long period of inactivity. In 2005, all but Barrett reunited for a one-off performance at the global awareness event Live 8. Barrett died in 2006, and Wright in 2008. The last Pink Floyd studio album, The Endless River, 2014, was based on unreleased material from the Division Bell recording sessions.
What about some of the new technologies, sampling and all that stuff? I mean, there's big controversy over that, if that's sort of ripping people off, if, you know, when you sort of sample someone's riff and lay it in on another album.
I think sampling someone's riff might be ripping them off.
I don't think that's often done. I would have thought sampling tends to be the sampling of sounds. But I mean, I think that you could argue that you own the rights on a sound that you've developed yourself. But basically, once someone's done it themselves, it's an old sound. You know, the interest I think in sampling is the most interesting areas tend to be in making up new samples, making up new sounds, perhaps using the basis of someone else's sound and then developing that by adding other parts to it.
We found most of the sampling stuff, not all of it, but a lot of the sampling and the stuff like that makes the early stages and what actually is recording, but you could call pre-production or demoing. But these days there's no real difference. But I mean, we used a computer to record MIDI information, and we used that to control sampled drums on an Akai sampler, and it just meant that we could create a very close facsimile of what we were trying to get to very quickly and easily, and then start building it from there. And we generally replaced the drums later and replaced other things later, but I find it amazing. It's great to be able to use all that stuff, because you get very much closer, very much quicker to what you're trying to create.
How about how long did it take you to construct the whole album, as you're saying, piece by piece, and with people in different countries and different parts of the world doing different things?
Well, it wasn't, no, that makes it sound slightly sort of piecemeal, which that was really towards the end of it. We all got a bit more spread out. But I think the basic
we were about 5 months in England working in the studio. And yeah.
6 or 7 months in
It
England.
was from last September till the end of March, I guess. Yeah. And then we went to LA, basically just to finish up. But of course, when you just go to finish something up, you suddenly discover that you actually need to do quite a lot of it again, yeah, in the normal way.
Is old material new stuff, or is it stuff that some of it been sitting around for a couple of years here or there?
Most of it is under 2 years old. One bit is actually 10 years old, but well, part of it was actually recorded 10 years ago.
What are your writing habits, if you mind me asking? Are you the kind of person who goes for a deadline, you know you're going to do the album, so you sit down and write, or are you always sort of writing? And
no, I stockpile millions and millions of little ideas, and when I'm going to start doing something, I tend to go by myself into a studio and start picking things out of these ghastly little demos, which usually last only about 10 seconds, and tie them together and make sort of improved studio demos, which still don't take very long. They're only sort of an hour or so to put together, but
did you finish that thought, or do you have more to say about that?
I'll do a tiny bit more.
Okay. Ready? Okay.
Rolling? Yeah. No, and the lyrics are pretty much the same thing, where I jot down in a notebook. I have a little notebook, which I then, do you like the sound effects? They're testing jet engines outside the wall here. It's great.
Sample it quickly.
Quick. And I then sort of the same with that. I move tiny little bits of lyrics from my notebook and stick them into a word processor and start carrying on from there. So it's, usually, sometimes, you know, I mean, occasionally you sit down and you go strum a guitar and the whole thing arrives in one go, but that's not very common.
The video was shot here yesterday, correct? You guys were shooting a music video here?
We got the choruses done yesterday, yes.
Now, is this video going to feature you guys? I mean, a Pink Floyd video we haven't seen you guys in an actual Pink Floyd video. Is this one going to be different than
For
that?
quite a while.
Yeah. Is this going to be, or tell me a little bit about what we're going to be seeing in this video. Is it performance-oriented?
Is it performance? It's not really performance-oriented.
A little bit, a snatch of performance.
You're so impatient, you people.
Hmm?
You're so impatient.
We are?
Yes.
Well, we like to know what's going to happen before it happens. I mean, hey, you know.
It's much more fun to wait and see it in all its majesty when it arrives.
Okay. All right.
That's Dave's way of saying we haven't a clue at the moment.
Sort of when it's all there, you say, I like that shot, I like it.
More or less.
Do you guys like music videos at all? I mean, do you like the aspect of being up there in front and sort of performing to your
Is this
song?
What, the truth or?
You can speak
we
the truth,
really
even though it's
like
MTV.
it.
You can speak the truth.
Shall I go first?
If you like, yes.
I think there are a few videos that I really like that I think sort of transcend the run of the mill and actually enhance the music. The problem with video is that it restricts the viewer's imagination. That suddenly, you know, all they can think about is that image that's presented to them. Having said that, live videos obviously aren't affected by that, but there's something unsatisfactory generally about sort of TV size mega productions live. I mean, the worst ever music video was probably it's all right. It was probably Walt Disney and the Sorcerer's Apprentice. You know, I mean, anyone who's ever seen that will never be able to hear that piece of music again without thinking of those stupid brooms with their buckets of water. And I mean, there's the sort of, that is I think the best example of what I mean. But having said that, I mean, there's a video, the one I particularly like at the moment is the John Lennon, the Imagine one of the passing through the room, through the rooms.
Do you like being in front of the camera? Are you comfortable in front of the camera, or is that
No, not very. A bit self-conscious. Yeah. I like the Jill Jones one the best this year. I thought it was great. Jill Jones's video. MTV wouldn't play it.
We get like that sometimes.
I know. Terrible. Kept trying to watch to see it, and all I got was bleeding heavy metal over there. And Cinderella and fucking Poison.
Well, you know,
Which
I don't
ought
want
to be.
But that's another story. Another question I want to talk to you about, just a little bit of a different subject, is we're doing this piece on hearing loss. And
Pardon?
rock and roll. And does it ever affect, we know, we've talked to some fans. How about you guys up on the stage for years and in recording studios and all? Has it ever been a problem with either of you?
No.
No, I've had my hearing checked fairly regularly, because I was quite interested in whether it was going to drop off. And it seems to be normal.
Mine's fairly normal. It's perfectly good as far as I can tell. I've had it tested. I read a thing that a doctor on this stuff wrote once who said that if you started off in these things when you were very young, like we did, and the levels when we started were not anything like what they were, and gradually over years and years and years the level built up, you actually gained some sort of muscular defense system in the ears that counteracts it. Whether it's true or not, I have no idea, but it certainly makes me feel happy at carrying on.
Has anybody ever complained about you guys, about noise? I mean, either in an outdoor stadium or fans or anything?
Yeah, well, people, it's kind of inevitable. A little less these days when PAs have flown up the top, but certainly in the old days when the PAs were stuck on the edge of the stage. I mean, you're trying to make people 200 yards away hear what's going on, and there are people sitting 5 feet away from it, and I can't. I mean, I wouldn't.
I must
couldn't
say,
pay me enough money to sit down
yeah,
in front of some of
absolutely.
those PAs.
I tend to find that the sort of listening levels that other people like in live music are extraordinarily high.
Don't look at me.
Speaking of front rows, this show seems to be one of those shows, just from looking at the stage here, that you wouldn't want to be in the front row because you're sort of going to miss the whole overall feeling of it. Where do you think would be the best place to sit? This is trying to get the kids who have the tickets in the back to feel okay.
The drum kit, sitting there is a great place to watch it from.
Just in front of the mixing desk is actually usually the best place, because you're in the best equal position from all the quad stations and stuff like that, and you get a perfect front view. I mean, you're getting it as close there to what the sound man and the lights man are trying to create a perfect thing. That's, if you're as close to their position, is where it's going to be the best, really.
But if you
thinking of selling seats actually in the mixing area this time.
If you like that sort of thing, I think actually probably the front. If you're the sort of person that likes front seats, you probably would quite like the sort of treatment you get. It's a sort of musical mugging, I think.
Don't forget your shades.
Yeah.
Theater of cruelty. If we could talk for a minute about Roger, if that's...
I knew this had come up.
Well, you've been done for it.
Just a couple of the quick things.
Okay.
He's on the road performing a lot of the same material, or I don't know if it's the same, but Pink Floyd material.
Yeah.
What are your feelings about that?
Well, anyone can play anything they like. I mean, he's perfectly entitled to play others, isn't he?
Do you feel at all, what are your feelings about playing maybe some of the songs that he has written? You said you were going to try not to, whatever Pink Floyd material that was created by all of us, whatever the writing credit says, there's a lot more to it than that. I feel perfectly comfortable playing things. We haven't as yet had to do anything which I didn't sing originally on the record or anything, so none of it is feeling uncomfortable from that point of view. So no, it feels fine. Now, fans seem to be responding overwhelmingly to your tour. His is not doing that well. His album is sort of dropping off, and yet you're performing Pink Floyd material. What do you see as any reason for that other than?
Well, the reason is that we've all spent, he spent over 20 years, I spent nearly 20 years working on building up the Pink Floyd name. It's, I mean, if you liken it to basic, crass sort of advertising, it's, if someone left Coca-Cola and started up his own soft drink company with the same recipe, it wouldn't sell as many. It's just, it's very simple.
Do you ever think you will ever not get back with him, but will be a reconciliation? Are you at all friendly with him? Is there a big gap between you guys now?
We're not at all friendly, really, at the moment. I mean, it's very difficult to remain on good terms when someone's trying to completely fuck you up, Put bluntly.
I can understand that.
Put that another way.
Actually, put this another way. When someone's trying to screw your life and career up, it's hard to stay friendly on that.
Comments on Dark Side of the Moon. 693 weeks now on the Billboard chart.
Yeah.
Nothing will ever pass that, and it'll probably never drop out. What are your feelings about the album today, if you ever go back and listen to it?
It's a good record, very good. I mean, like I've said countless times, I've never really fully understood what made it that much better, or if it is that much better than a number of other records which were quite sort of momentous in my life or other people's lives. You know. And Sgt. Pepper is what people talk about as the sort of the be-all and end-all of albums, but that hasn't been on the charts for centuries.
Yeah. Do you feel now that it's just one of those things that's just going to perpetuate itself, that people are always going to say, we have to keep it up there, it's one of those things that people like to see going?
I don't think people go in the stores and buy it because they think they've got to keep it in the Billboard charts. No.
It's a wonderful idea. I mean, that people feel obliged to keep this damn ball in the air.
Just write to my mum and tell her to stop wasting her money.
Do you think that was one of the highlights, or is that the highlight of Pink Floyd so far because of that? Or
there's many different ones. I think I prefer Wish You Were Here to that myself. But, you know,
I must say, I think one of the things that's we've been very lucky with, as far as the Dark Side of the Moon is concerned, is that it doesn't seem to have inhibited us being able to carry on and bash out other records. I mean, one tends to sort of think of people like Procol Harum and Whiter Shade of Pale, where that really hung around their neck like a millstone for an awful long time. And it was a good band, they've made other records and so on, but that really was the reference point the whole time. I mean, although Dark Side is still on the charts, we don't actually seem to be that bothered. I wasn't meaning by ourselves, but people are interested in the phenomena, but they don't say, oh, well, they've never made a record as good as that since. Because in a way, it's perhaps, I think some of Dark Side of the Moon is historically interesting rather than.
By 1966, the group's repertoire consisted mainly of rhythm and blues songs, and they had begun to receive paid bookings, including a performance at the Marquee Club in December 1966, where Peter Jenner, a lecturer at the London School of Economics, noticed them. Jenner was impressed by the sonic effects Barrett and Wright created, and with his business partner and friend Andrew King became their manager. The pair had little experience in the music industry and used King's inheritance to set up Black Hill Enterprises, purchasing about £1,000, equivalent to £18,800 in 2019, worth of new instruments and equipment for the band. It was around this time that Jenner suggested they drop the sound part of their band name, thus becoming the Pink Floyd. Under Jenner and King's guidance, the group became part of London's underground music scene, playing at venues including All Saints Hall and the Marquee. While performing at the Countdown Club, the band had experimented with long instrumental excursions, and they began to expand them with rudimentary but effective light shows, projected by colored slides and domestic lights. Jenner and King's social connections helped gain the band prominent coverage in the Financial Times and an article in the Sunday Times which stated, at the launching of the new magazine IT the other night, a pop group called the Pink Floyd played throbbing music while a series of bizarre colored shapes flashed on a huge screen behind them, apparently very psychedelic. In 1966, the band strengthened their business relationship with Black Hill Enterprises, becoming equal partners with Jenner and King and the band members each holding a 1/6 share. By late 1966, their set included fewer R&B standards and more Barrett originals, many of which would be included on their first album. While they had significantly increased the frequency of their performances, the band were still not widely accepted. Following a performance at a Catholic youth club, the owner refused to pay them, claiming that their performance was not music. When their management filed suit in a small claims court against the owner of the youth organization, a local magistrate upheld the owner's decision. The band was much better received at the UFO Club in London, where they began to build a fan base. Barrett's performances was enthusiastic, very interesting, which none of the others could do, wrote biographer Nicholas Schaffner. Considered one of the UK's first psychedelic music groups, Pink Floyd began their career at the vanguard of London's underground music scene, appearing at UFO Club and Middle-earth Club. According to Rolling Stone, by 1967, they had developed an unmistakably psychedelic sound, performing long, loud suite-like compositions that touched on hard rock, blues, country, folk, and electronic music. Released in 1968, the song "Careful with That Axe" Eugene helped galvanize their reputation as an art rock group. Other genres attributed to the band are space rock, experimental rock, acid rock, proto-prog, experimental pop, while under Barrett, psychedelic pop, and psychedelic rock. O'Neill Serber comments on the music of Pink Floyd. During the late 1960s, the press labeled their music psychedelic pop, progressive pop and progressive rock. In 1968, Wright commented on Pink Floyd's sonic reputation, "It's hard to see why we were cast as the first British psychedelic group. We never saw ourselves that way. We realized that we were, after all, only playing for fun, tied to no particular form of music. We could do whatever we wanted. The emphasis is firmly on spontaneity and improvisation." Waters gave a less enthusiastic assessment of the band's early sound. "There wasn't anything grand about it. We were laughable. We were useless. We couldn't play at all, so we had to do something stupid and experimental. Sid was a genius, but I wouldn't want to go back to playing Interstellar Overdrive for hours and hours." Unconstrained by conventional pop formats, Pink Floyd were innovators of progressive rock during the 1970s and ambient music during the 1980s.
David, it's so nice to meet you.
And you.
I wanted to talk to you about your great new solo album, which I've had the pleasure of listening to. Where did the inspiration for this album come from? Is this your life? Is this all about you?
It's, well, you know, a lot of the lyrics are written by my wife, Polly. And she used to try to really channel me, you know, to understand what was going on in my mind. And I think she's now liberated herself from the compulsion to do that, or to feel that's an absolute necessity. So she feels more free to write. And I guess she just thinks that if she means what she says, then I will give it my best shot to mean what she says too, as if it were me.
Do you prefer doing a solo album over working with a band?
What band?
There's a band called Pink Floyd. You might.
There was a band called Pink Floyd. Yes, it's it's not exactly news that I don't really feel like doing that anymore. But
right, but is it a
I'm
solo?
going to sneeze now, I think. Hang on, I'll try not to.
But doing a solo, the difference between recording a solo album and recording with other input. Do you prefer just having doing your own thing?
No, I don't think I do. I think I enjoy it whatever way it comes. I mean, I think I would have spent a lot of I like being part of a unit, and I feel that my unit now is more me and Polly,
right?
And to a certain extent, Phil Manzanera and other people too. But you know, we are a sort of partnership, a unit, and I feel better as part of something rather than being, you know, the complete solo artist all on my own.
And how does it work? Do you record the music? You present all the songs to Polly, or are there certain songs that you want her to write lyrics for specifically?
Well, you know, as we live together and see each other all the time, she hears what I'm working on. So if I've got a newish thing that I'm working on or something that I've developed to a certain point, I'll play it to her. And if she expresses an interest in it and likes it, then I'll pop it onto some listening device for her. And when she goes for walks, she will try and listen and work out what it should be about. So the music does so far comes first. I don't want to declare a rule book
because that could change.
It could change any time, you know. I mean, if Polly came to me with something that she felt was a lyric, I would either try to write a piece of music for it or find something that I've got that would be adjustable, the words and the music towards each other.
Is there ever a time that you say, I don't like the way that works?
It's with the song "The Girl in the Yellow Dress," which I had written that music and had recorded a basic track with a jazz trio for "The Girl in the Yellow Dress" in 2004. So I've had it for a while, but it never quite, either musically or lyrically, presented itself to me 100% back then. Yeah. And Polly did write some words for it back then, but for one reason or another, I can't really remember the words or what my frame of mind was at the time, but I also felt that the track hadn't sort of, I find it hard to describe exactly what I mean, but there's that final 10% of something where you think, well, that's got potential, but until you find that last bit of its potential, it's not quite there, it's not quite ready. So we forgot about whatever it was that she had written the words for it back then.
It turned out beautiful.
Great, yes, it's fantastic.
Jazzy, bluesy kind of song.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about some of the songs on the album. I'm actually going to play you something. This is... That is the door chime on the Toronto subway system when the doors are about to close.
Yeah.
And the reason I played it for you is because there's an interesting story about Rattle That Lock.
Yeah.
Could that inspire a song?
I don't think so.
No. But Rattle That Lock.
That's 3 notes.
Yeah.
It's in sort of fairly equal descending intervals. There's no syncopation. There's not really a melody. It's not going to make you get up and dance, is it?
No.
And the one for Rattle That Lock is the one on the French railway stations. I travel by train most of the time when I'm traveling in Europe. I'm not over keen, Polly's particularly not over keen on flight.
Flying.
And we find that we mostly get to places pretty nearly as quick, in much more genteel comfort by the train. And when you're in France, that's the SNCF jingle. Is, it's catchy.
It's got a groove to it.
Yeah, it's got a groove to it. It's catchy. I recorded it with my iPhone, brought it back here, made up a tune, recorded it, played it to Polly, and there you are. There you have it. She loved it.
Does that happen a lot? That sounds or things you see make you think, I can write a song?
I do record sounds. I've got 1 or 2 other bits of sounds that I have recorded of noise. I've got one that I have yet to use. I haven't written a song with it yet. That is the noise a particular car makes when its door is open to warn you that the door is open. It's kind of it's just one noise and it's insistent. But maybe one day, I don't know. Anyway, music just presents itself to me any way it can. And now with having carrying, we all carry around a recording studio, a film studio, a address book, even a phone.
It's all here.
It's all there in your pocket all the time. Yeah. So when little moments present themselves to you and you're open to it, you can make a little quick note and then put it back in your pocket and forget it and come back to it.
Also on Rattle That Lock, you use prison choir. And I was How did that even?
It's not a prison choir. There's a charity that does singing inside prisons, and there's a choir outside prisons, and the choir outside of the prisons in South London is open and available, so that when these prisoners, and the ones that can do this choir are the ones towards the end of their sentences, and it's one way that two people, this lovely woman MJ Paranzino and Ginny Dugri, have put together to help to welcome people back into what we call the real world. So the choir that I used on Rattle That Lock did have some ex-prisoners in it, and a bunch of people who just
And
do
you
this
had
choir.
heard them, or is this they were recommended to you?
It's a charity that
Okay.
I have
Okay.
a sort of stake in, that I support.
Tell me about A Boat Lies Waiting.
Yeah.
Graham Nash.
Graham Nash and David Crosby are singing on it. They're old friends. They sang on an Island album as well, and they were here doing some shows, and I said, "Come, I've got a tune I want you to sing." And Polly had just written the words, in fact, at that point. And the words are about Rick Wright. It's the rolling motion of the piano playing in that tune, I think, inspired Polly to think about the ocean, and thinking about the ocean inspired her to think about Rick, whose big passion was sailing, and he sailed all over the world constantly. So that became about him.
And does Gabriel?
And the piano, the piano
I was
on
gonna
that
say.
one. No, Gabriel, my son, plays on another track.
Oh, okay.
But the piano on that one, there's the piano on the introduction is Brian Eno's brother, Roger Eno, great, lovely guy. But then the piano afterwards actually is back to my original demo, which I recorded with a little cheap mini disc player years ago. In fact, I recorded that 18 years ago, because it's got my son, who's now 18, Gabriel, squawking on it.
Oh.
Little squawking noise is him. He plays piano on another track in Any Time.
Oh, okay. And that's I think that's going to be the next single that's released in Canada, In Any Tongue.
In Any Tongue, is it? I didn't know that.
So, can you tell me about the inspiration for that one?
In Any Tongue? Polly would be better at talking about the lyrics. She wrote the lyrics to that one, but it's, I guess you could say it's about the consciences and regrets of people who are affected by war, either on the receiving end or on the delivering end, of these who often don't know the mysterious reasons why they are on the receiving end or on the giving end. I mean, and a lot of young soldiers who come back after war zone activity, combat activity, have consciences where they stop really understanding quite why they were there, or they start questioning the reasons that they were there in the first place, and finding that the answers they're given aren't satisfactory. All the people, as I say, who are on the receiving end of it, whose children and whose selves are being killed by people who are controlling weapons on the other side of the planet.
The album is very different than what I've heard from you before, but there are some other tracks on the album that are very reminiscent of Pink Floyd. The beginning of 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you hear that first guitar note, it's very distinctive David Gilmour guitar. But there is, would you not agree, a Pink Floyd fan will love this album?
Well, I hope.
Not just because they love you, but because it, and also
There's no fundamental difference between what I love and about what I do, and the me that is also a part of Pink Floyd. The music that we made as Pink Floyd is what I love doing. It is absolutely, pretty much perfectly to my taste. And this that I am doing now also is pretty much perfectly to my taste, and it's just different moment, different tunes, different lyrics.
Do you have favorites?
Hundreds of favourites.
So not one or two that you can just look
I
back
can't
and go,
pinpoint
No.
one or two moments from a lifetime of
but
creating
maybe
music.
from this album in particular.
Again, I think it's, for me, I think it's, you know, without false modesty, I think it's a very, very good album. I think, you know, I think I'm hitting some sort of a peak here.
It's all right to feel that way. Proud of it. You're in rehearsals right now for the upcoming tour.
Yeah.
Playing 2 Toronto shows, which we're very happy about. But I had to laugh when I read one of your quotes about talking about the upcoming tour, saying that you weren't going to be playing a lot of venues because this was an old man's tour. So
All sorts of things you say come back to bite you.
sorry, but
Have to live with it.
Is there physical preparation that has to go into this? I know you've got your Fitbit on and you're doing your 10,000 steps a day.
Oh shit, I should have taken it off.
But
Product placement, fuck.
yeah, we'll edit that out. But is there? Are you doing?
What, my Fitbit?
No.
Just paint, take it into CGI.
Is there physical? Do you have to get into shape? You know, do a Mick Jagger. I think of Mick Jagger.
Do
as
I need to
yoga.
get into shape? Come on. No, I'm just rehearsing. I'm constantly trying to get into shape, one way or another.
Right.
But you know,
Because it can be so.
I don't
taxing.
want to be, you know, I'm not in my 20s. I don't want to be schlepping all over the planet, playing every city. I just don't want to do that. I don't feel like doing that. I'm going to be forcing people to come to me a bit more on this one. I'm sorry about that, but you know.
Have you thought about a set list?
I'm thinking about the set list right now. I sat up with Polly last night and we wrote out the first set list.
So she has input on that as well.
Yeah, she has input on pretty much everything in my life.
That's nice. But without giving
And
too
vice
much.
versa.
Yeah. Without giving too much away, can you give us a hint? Is it going to be mostly from this album? Is it some other solo albums? Throw Floyd song in there?
There'll be Pink Floyd songs. There'll be David Gilmour solo songs. I won't be doing anything by Leonard Cohen or Bob Dylan.
The last track on the album,
Yeah,
and then ...
yeah. Yeah.
Is it to be continued?
Life is to be continued. Music is to be continued. I have every intention of making another album, and my intention is for it not to take 9 years this time, but there's no promises.
And is there ever any pressure that you put on yourself? I have to finish this.
There is eventually a pressure to finish something, because at some point you have to commit to doing dates, and halls, rooms, theatres have to be booked, musicians have to be booked, and there comes the moment of truth where they say, well, now you are doing this is booked, so the album has got to be finished by that date. So then, but there's nothing wrong with a bit of pressure.
What would you be doing if you weren't in the studio or on tour?
Gosh, I can't remember.
Walking?
It's been so long. Walking, talking, you know, helping to guide my children into adulthood a little bit. All the things that people do.
Do you have a favorite guitar player?
I have lots of favourite guitar players.
So many people will say David Gilmour is the best. He plays with emotion. I've talked to so many of your fans. So if you had to pick out one that stands out right now.
I probably the person who I have admired the longest and the most consistently is Jeff Beck in the guitar playing stakes.
So
And a lovely guy.
I've got some questions from listeners who sent them in. I would like to know what he enjoys listening to. So what music are you listening to?
I've just been so busy for so long now that I can't remember what I was last listening to. The last album that I listened to the whole album and got a bit obsessed by and really enjoyed putting on and listening to the whole thing all the way through was Nick Cave's last album called Push the Sky Away, which is brilliant. He lives here in Brighton.
We were chatting about him actually earlier. Who are the musicians who influenced you then and now?
You know, it's so hard. You know, I'm doing people an injustice if I try to pin down people,
others,
because I have got, my musical taste is so broad and encompasses so many people from, you know, the folk music world, you know, Pete Seeger, Woody Guthrie, Bob Dylan, Joni Mitchell, yeah, Hank Marvin, Eddie Cochran, you know, thousands. There's just thousands, and all of those people's music has entered my subconscious and created a sort of mishmash that has become what is, I suppose, my style. And I can't pin it down tighter than that. I'm sorry, it's a little broad, but I'm very happy that it is broad.
Where is your favorite place to visit in the world?
My favorite place to Britain to visit. Well, my country of birth, this one, is my favourite place to be. I love to take holidays, you know, as everyone does. The Mediterranean suits me, you know. I love nice. Turkey.
I love this question. What musician have you paid to see in concert?
Let me think. I have paid to see thousands of musicians. You don't get
comps? David Gilmour doesn't get comps?
Well, if I want to go and see someone, I have a manager and an agent, and I can say to them, I would usually see if I can buy tickets first, but often I don't have my finger on the pulse so much.